Welcome back to Sovereign Judgment, where neighborhood rules are treated like sacred scripture, right up until somebody actually reads them. Today's story begins with an HOA insisting my driveway was ruining the neighborhood view, and ends with federal accessibility law, 3 concrete trucks, and the largest residential driveway in Broward County. Tell me where you're watching from, because I need to know whether this level of suburban nonsense is regional or simply part of the human condition. Let's pour the concrete. The letter arrived on a Tuesday at 4:17 p.m. in a cream-colored envelope thick enough to suggest either a wedding invitation or a threat drafted by someone with access to premium stationery. It bore the embossed crest of the Willowmere Hills Homeowners Association, which featured 2 oak trees, a winding road, and what appeared to be a golden squirrel experiencing a tax audit. I opened it at my kitchen counter, while wearing 1 pizza sock and 1 plain black sock, because laundry discipline has never been the foundation of my character. The letter was 1 page. The attitude required 3. Notice of architectural noncompliance. Dear Mr. Daniel Harper, following a visual harmony review conducted by the Architectural Standards Committee, your existing driveway has been determined to create an unacceptable interruption of the scenic corridor enjoyed by neighboring properties. I stopped reading and looked out the window. My driveway was 12 feet wide, 68 feet long, and made of ordinary gray concrete. It ran from Juniper Crest Road to my garage in a straight line with the reckless visual aggression of a ruler lying on a desk. The scenic corridor consisted of my neighbor's hedge, 2 municipal trash cans, and the distant upper third of a decorative windmill owned by a retired dentist. The letter continued. Pursuant to Article 7, Section 4, Paragraph C, you are hereby instructed to remove, narrow, relocate, screen, or otherwise mitigate the offending surface within 30 days. The fine would be $150 per day. There was also a handwritten note in blue ink. We have discussed visual stewardship before. We had not. At the bottom was the signature of HOA President Patricia Voss, written with such confidence that it looked less like a name and more like a military occupation. I read the letter twice. Then I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, forgot about it for 23 minutes, and drank it cold. That will matter only because every important decision I have ever made has apparently been accompanied by coffee at the temperature of a disappointed bathtub. I bought 114 Juniper Crest Road 7 years earlier, after my wife, Elena, died. The house wasn't grand. It was a 1-story brick ranch with a green front door, a maple tree that leaned 6 degrees toward the mailbox, and a garage door that squeaked during humid weather like a mouse testifying before Congress. But Elena had loved it. We had toured the place together when the previous owner still lived there. Elena stood at the end of the driveway, looked back toward the front porch, and said, "This is wide enough." That sentence would not mean much to most people. It meant everything to me. Elena had multiple sclerosis. By the final 2 years of her life, she used a wheelchair most days and a walker on the good ones. We never bought the house, but I remembered every detail she had noticed. The shallow front step, the broad hallway, the level path from the driveway to the side entrance. After she died, I stayed in our old apartment for 11 months, where every room felt like it was holding its breath. Then 114 Juniper Crest came onto the market again. I bought it without negotiating. Over the years, I made small improvements. I installed a handrail along the side walkway. I widened the garage entrance. I replaced the side door with a 36-inch model. None of this was dramatic. I simply liked knowing that my home could welcome anyone without turning their visit into an obstacle course designed by a medieval stair enthusiast. For work, I reviewed municipal infrastructure plans for the Broward County Office of Public Access. That sounds more impressive than it is. Mostly, I sat in a beige office checking curb ramps, parking layouts, pedestrian routes, and building plans for compliance with local accessibility requirements. I spent my days measuring slopes to the nearest 0.1%, while contractors explained why gravity should make an exception for them. I knew accessibility codes, I knew municipal approvals, and, more importantly, I knew that people who casually tossed around the phrase visual harmony generally became nervous when asked to define accessible route. Still, I did not assume Patricia Voss was wrong. I believed in documentation, partly because it was my profession, and partly because arguing from memory is how ordinary disagreements evolve into 47-message neighborhood Facebook threads. So the next morning, at 8:12, I emailed the HOA. Patricia, thank you for the notice. Please send me the committee report, photographs, measurements, meeting minutes, voting record, definition of scenic corridor, and the specific remedy approved by the board. Regards, Daniel Harper. At 8:19, she replied. Mr. Harper, the committee's findings are self-evident. Patricia Voss, President, Willowmere Hills Homeowners Association. That answer had all the nutritional value of a decorative parsley sprig. At 9:03, I sent another email. Patricia, please identify which neighboring properties possess the scenic corridor referenced in the notice. Daniel, her response, arrived at 9:05. The affected homes are confidential. Apparently my driveway was blocking a classified view. Patricia arrived in person that afternoon. I heard the faint electric whine of her golf cart before I saw it. The vehicle was pearl white, equipped with side mirrors, chrome cup holders, and a flashing amber beacon on the roof. It moved down Juniper Crest Road like a tiny emergency vehicle dispatched to a crisis involving hydrangeas. She stopped directly across the lower edge of my driveway. Patricia Voss stepped out, wearing cream slacks, ironed so sharply they could have opened mail, and a coral floral blazer that looked like a hotel lobby carpet had successfully applied for public office. Under one arm she carried a navy clipboard. Patricia always had a clipboard. I later saw her carrying it at a Christmas cookie exchange, which suggested either deep commitment to administration or a genuine fear of encountering unrecorded gingerbread. She marched toward me with the posture of a 4-star general inspecting troops who had planted unauthorized begonias. Mr. Harper, she said. Her voice had the tonal quality of a violin being tuned inside a metal trash can. Patricia, President Voss is appropriate during official association business. Is this official association business? She raised the clipboard. It was evidently the ceremonial mace of Willowmere Hills. I am here to clarify the compliance notice. Great. Which view does my driveway block? She glanced toward the street, then toward the Reinhardt's hedge. The cumulative visual field. What is the cumulative visual field? The visual field considered cumulatively. That clears it up. Her lips tightened like a drawstring bag, containing several angry lemons. Your sarcasm is not productive. Neither is narrowing a driveway without knowing why. Patricia turned the top page on her clipboard. Article 7, Section 4, Paragraph C, grants the Architectural Standards Committee discretion to regulate hardscape surfaces that interfere with established neighborhood character, visual continuity, scenic enjoyment, or general aesthetic flow. Who voted? The committee. Who is on the committee? That information is available in the directory. I checked. The committee has one member. She blinked. You. I serve in an interim capacity. For how long? 4 years. That's a very stable interim. Patricia inhaled through her nose, slow and deliberate, like a vacuum cleaner encountering a curtain. The fact remains that your driveway is wider and more visually prominent than comparable driveways. It's 12 feet wide. Precisely. The county minimum for a single-car residential access lane is 10 feet. Then you have 2 unnecessary feet. That is not how driveways work. It is how measurements work, Mr. Harper. I admired the confidence. Not the reasoning, but the confidence. Patricia, are you ordering me to reduce the driveway to 10 feet? I am instructing you to preserve community views. By narrowing it, that would be one acceptable mitigation. How much? She pointed toward the right edge. Approximately 3 feet. That would make it 9 feet wide. Approximately. You just said 12 minus 2. This is not a mathematics meeting. That sentence deserved to be framed. Please put your required dimensions in writing, I said. Her eyes narrowed. Why? Because concrete is difficult to unpour. I am not discussing construction methodology. You're ordering construction. I am ordering compliance. Then define compliance. Patricia drew herself taller, though she was already standing on the raised edge of my driveway, which gave her the commanding height of a queen addressing peasants from a very small loading dock. You have 30 days, she said. After that, the association will impose daily fines and may pursue a lien. There it was. The word lien landed between us like a piano dropped into a swimming pool. I had seen HOA liens before, I knew they were serious. Even ridiculous disputes could become expensive once lawyers entered the room and began billing in 6-minute increments. I kept my face neutral. Send me the dimensions. I have explained the violation. No, you have described a mood. Patricia made a sound like a goose discovering a parking ticket. You are being deliberately difficult. I'm being precisely cooperative. She spun around and marched back to the golf cart. Halfway there, she turned. And move your recycling bin behind the side fence. It is visible from the road. Today is collection day. Visibility does not become acceptable merely because it is scheduled. Then she drove away beneath the flashing amber beacon, moving at 9 miles per hour, with all the urgency of a state funeral for a shrub. 2 days later, I received a second letter. This one contained photographs. There were 11. 8 showed my driveway. 2 showed my mailbox. 1 showed me standing in my kitchen through the front window, holding a bowl of cereal and looking confused. I emailed Patricia. Why is there a photograph of me eating Raisin Bran? She replied. The image establishes scale. I printed that email. Then I started a folder. By the end of the week, the folder had become a binder. By the end of the month, the binder needed reinforced rings. The first fine arrived on day 31, $150. The second arrived on day 32, another $150, plus a $25 administrative processing charge. On day 33, Patricia posted in the private Willowmere Hills Facebook group. It is unfortunate when individual residents prioritize personal convenience over the shared visual resources of the entire community. She didn't name me. She attached a photo of my house. The comments began within minutes. Linda Caraway wrote, "What visual resource?" Patricia replied, "Those impacted understand." Gordon Pike wrote, "Is this about Daniel's driveway?" Patricia replied, "The board does not discuss active enforcement matters." Then she discussed the active enforcement matter for 19 additional comments. At 6:40 that evening, my doorbell rang. My neighbor, Linda Caraway, stood on the porch holding a casserole dish covered with aluminum foil. Linda was 73, 4 feet 11, and possessed the focused energy of a librarian who had just discovered someone highlighting a first edition. "I brought lasagna," she said. "Thank you." And information. Even better. We sat at my kitchen table. Linda leaned toward me. "Patricia says your driveway blocks my view." "Does it?" "No. My kitchen faces east. Your house is west. What view does it block?" "My compost tumbler." "That may be confidential." Linda's eyes sharpened. She asked me to sign a complaint. I put down my fork. "When?" 3 weeks ago. She said the driveway reduced neighborhood openness and might affect property values. "Did you sign?" I told her the only thing affecting my property value was her golf cart sounding like a microwave with a loose fan belt. I smiled. Linda pointed her fork at me. She already had a complaint form filled out in my name. That was useful. "Did you take a picture?" Linda reached into her handbag and placed her phone on the table. I was a middle school secretary for 38 years. Of course I took a picture. I would follow Linda Caraway into battle, armed only with a stapler. The form read, "Affected resident, Linda Caraway. Obstruction, excessive driveway width. Impact, loss of open neighborhood sightline. Requested remedy, reduce paved area by no less than 25%. At the bottom was Linda's signature line, blank. The committee recommendation was dated 2 days before Patricia visited Linda. I added the photo to my binder. The next morning, I measured everything. My driveway, 12 feet, 2 inches at the street apron. 12 feet even along the main run. The neighboring driveways ranged from 11 feet, 8 inches, to 16 feet, 4 inches. Patricia's own driveway was 17 feet, 6 inches wide. It also flared to 22 feet near her garage. I made a spreadsheet. Naturally, it worked on the first try. A statistical miracle that confirmed the universe occasionally rewards pettiness when properly formatted. I included property addresses, driveway widths, total paved area, visible angle from the road, and whether each home possessed what Patricia called a scenic corridor. Then I sent the findings to the board. Patricia responded 9 minutes later. Comparisons to other properties are irrelevant, because each parcel possesses unique aesthetic characteristics. I replied, "Please identify the unique aesthetic characteristic of my parcel." She wrote, "The driveway." We were now using the driveway to prove the driveway. That weekend, Patricia conducted what she called an on-site compliance verification. She arrived at 7:26 Saturday morning with Board Treasurer Kenneth Dobbins, who wore cargo shorts with 17 visible pockets, and the expression of a man who regretted joining anything more organized than a grocery store loyalty program. Patricia carried the clipboard. Kenneth carried a measuring wheel. I stepped onto the porch with cold coffee. Good morning. Patricia looked at her watch. It is 7:28. That is technically morning. We provided 48 hours notice of inspection. You emailed me at 11:14 last night. That falls within 2 calendar days. No, it falls within 1 night. We need access to the driveway. You're standing on it. We need to inspect the entire paved area. It's visible from the street. Patricia's voice rose like a tea kettle being promoted beyond its qualifications. Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph A, authorizes reasonable access for enforcement purposes. With owner consent. Consent may not be unreasonably withheld. I'm not withholding it. I'm standing here. We need to enter the garage. No. Kenneth stopped rolling the wheel. Patricia turned toward him. Continue. Kenneth looked at me. Do I need to go in the garage? No. He looked at Patricia. I don't need to go in the garage. She lowered her voice. Kenneth, you are an officer of the association. I'm the treasurer. Exactly. I handle checks. Kenneth. He sighed like a man watching his weekend sink beneath dark water. I said, you may measure all exterior surfaces from the driveway. You may not enter my home or garage. Patricia wrote something on the clipboard. What are you writing? I asked. Resident obstructed inspection. I gave you access. Conditional access. All access is conditional. That's why doors exist. Kenneth coughed into his fist. It might have been a laugh. Patricia snapped the clipboard shut. We will return with law enforcement. Officer Wayne Bell arrived at 10:42. He was 50-something, broad-shouldered, and carried himself like a man who had spent 25 years responding to emergencies, only to be summoned by a woman disputing concrete width. Patricia followed in her golf cart. She had changed into a navy polo, embroidered with the HOA logo over her heart. Like a military decoration she had personally awarded herself after surviving the Battle of Seasonal Wreaths. Officer Bell listened to her explanation without interrupting. Then he looked at me. Did you threaten anyone? No. Block anyone? No. Refuse to let them stand on your driveway? No. Patricia cut in. He obstructed an authorized inspection. Officer Bell turned toward her. Were you able to inspect the driveway? The exterior, yes. Is the driveway outside? That is not the issue. It's becoming the issue. She opened her clipboard. Article 9, Section 2. Officer Bell raised one hand. Ma'am, I don't enforce HOA bylaws. We are requesting assistance maintaining access. To his garage? Yes. Do you have a warrant? Patricia stared at him as if he had asked whether her golf cart was emotionally available. Of course not. Then you can't enter his garage. It is subject to association jurisdiction. It is subject to a garage door. Patricia's cheeks darkened. Officer Bell looked at my binder. You documenting all this? Yes? Good. He glanced at Patricia, then at the 12-foot strip of concrete that had apparently destabilized local democracy. This is a civil dispute about a driveway nobody is currently prevented from seeing. Then he returned to his patrol car. That became the first of Officer Bell's perfect summaries. The fines reached $2,975. Patricia added late fees, inspection fees, mailing fees, document reproduction fees, and a $40 community impact assessment, which appeared to be a fee charged for the emotional strain my driveway had placed on nearby asphalt. The board sent a notice threatening to refer the balance for collection. For the first time, I felt real fear. I had enough savings to fight, but not enough to pretend legal costs were imaginary. I sat at my kitchen table at 1:13 a.m., reading the bylaws while rain tapped the windows like impatient fingers. For about 10 minutes I considered paying. That was the closest I came to surrender. Then I reached Article 12. Buried beneath 2 paragraphs about roof colors and one inexplicably detailed restriction on satellite dishes was an accessibility clause. Nothing in these covenants shall be interpreted or enforced in a manner that prevents reasonable modifications necessary to afford full use and enjoyment of a residence by a person with a disability. where required by applicable law. That clause was standard. The interesting part was what Patricia had said in her third letter. Your driveway must be reduced to a maximum clear width of 9 feet along its full length, including the transition to the side entry path. The side entry path, the one I had designed as an accessible route. I took out the original property plans. The driveway wasn't merely parking access. It connected the public sidewalk to the level side entrance through a paved transition area. Narrowing it to 9 feet would force a vehicle parked along the garage edge to block the required wheelchair route. Patricia had not just demanded a smaller driveway. She had put in writing that the HOA required me to remove the maneuvering space beside an accessible entrance. Then she had fined me for refusing. I did not call a lawyer first. I called Marcus Delaney. Marcus ran Delaney Universal Design, a consulting firm specializing in accessible residential modifications. He had reviewed county plans with me years earlier, though we had never worked directly together. He answered at 7:04 the next morning. "Daniel Harper," he said, "either you have an accessibility question, or you finally admitted your office coffee tastes like boiled envelopes. I have an HOA question. That's worse." We met at my house that afternoon. Marcus stepped out of a red pickup wearing steel-toed boots, a tan work shirt, and a tape measure clipped to his belt, like a gunslinger whose only enemy was non-compliant geometry. He was 6'4", shaped like a refrigerator that had learned conflict resolution, and wore tiny rectangular glasses that made every measurement feel legally binding. He spent 40 minutes inspecting the driveway, garage, side path, door clearances, slopes, and turning space. Patricia drove past twice. The second time, she slowed down enough to qualify as surveillance conducted by an elderly parade float. Marcus watched her go. "That her?" "Yes. She looks like she's about to issue a citation to the sun for excessive brightness. She wants the driveway narrowed to 9 feet. Marcus looked at the driveway. Then he looked at me. "Did she put that in writing?" I handed him the letter. He read it once. Then again. Then he smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was the expression of a chef discovering someone had accidentally delivered premium ingredients to the wrong kitchen. "Oh, Daniel." "What?" She didn't just step on the rake. She submitted a written request that the rake be installed at face height. He walked to the side door. "This route is useful now, but it isn't ideal. I know. You have 36 inches at the door, but the approach is tight. The driveway slope is acceptable. The cross slope near the walkway is marginal. You could improve the entire route." "How?" Marcus pointed toward the left edge of the driveway. "Widen it." I stared at him. "How much?" "That depends." "On what? How strongly do you feel about scenic corridors?" Marcus's plan was simple, legal, and so perfectly fitted to Patricia's mistake that I briefly wondered whether concrete possessed a sense of justice. We would convert the side entrance into a fully compliant, accessible entrance suitable for residents, visitors, and future occupants with mobility devices. The improved design would include a wider vehicle transfer zone, an 8-foot access aisle, a gently sloped transition, a 5-foot turning area, edge protection near the landscaping, upgraded drainage, and a covered landing beside the door. To make the route safe and functional, the driveway would need to expand from 12 feet to 24 feet along most of its length, then widen to 28 feet near the garage. It would nearly double in size. I would also designate the left garage bay as accessible parking with the correct pavement markings and vertical signage. "You don't currently have a disabled resident," I said. Marcus nodded. "You don't need one to make your private home accessible. But you do have a regular visitor who uses a wheelchair, correct?" My sister Rebecca had used a wheelchair since a spinal injury 15 years earlier. She visited every Sunday, parking at the curb because transferring beside the existing driveway was difficult. "Yes. And you work in public access?" "Yes. And the HOA has ordered you to remove the space necessary for safe transfers?" "Yes." Marcus tapped the letter. "Then we're going to request a reasonable modification and make them deny it." Why would they deny it? He looked toward the road, where Patricia's golf cart had just passed for the third time. Because some people see a clearly marked legal boundary and experience it as a personal invitation. I hired Marcus for $2,800. I also retained attorney David Ruiz, who specialized in housing and accessibility disputes. David was a compact man with silver hair, a burgundy bow tie, and the calm expression of a walrus who had seen too much and now billed by the hour. His office was above a bakery in downtown Bellwether, so our first legal consultation smelled strongly of cinnamon rolls and controlled aggression. David reviewed my binder. He read Patricia's letters. He examined Linda's photograph of the unsigned complaint. He looked at the Facebook posts, Officer Bell's incident report, the inspection emails, and the fine ledger. At last, he removed his glasses. "Does President Voss know what you do for a living?" "I don't think so." "Excellent. Why is that excellent?" "Because overconfidence is most useful when properly preserved." He drafted a formal, reasonable modification request. It cited the HOA's own accessibility clause, the state fair housing statute, county building standards, and the dimensions of the proposed improvement. The request included Marcus's plans and a letter from Rebecca explaining that the existing driveway made safe vehicle transfer difficult during her weekly visits. David ended with a paragraph asking the HOA to suspend enforcement and approve the modification within 14 days. I delivered the package by certified mail and email. Patricia responded in 47 minutes. Request denied. Her message continued. The board finds that the proposed driveway expansion would dramatically worsen the exact visual obstruction already under enforcement. No medical need has been established for the homeowner. Visitors do not possess standing to dictate permanent architectural changes. The existing side entrance is optional, and access may occur through the front door. The front door had 2 steps. David read the email and called me. She denied it herself? Looks that way. No vote? Not mentioned. No legal review? Not mentioned. He exhaled softly, like a man opening a birthday gift and finding admissible evidence. "Daniel, I need you to save that email in 6 places." Patricia sent another message 15 minutes later. Additionally, any unauthorized enlargement of the driveway will result in immediate fines of $500 per day and legal action seeking restoration of the original surface. David called again. 7 places. We filed an administrative accessibility complaint with the Broward County Human Rights Office and sent notice to the State Housing Compliance Division. We also applied for the construction permit. Because the project involved drainage changes and an accessible route, the county required plan review. I knew every document they would need. For once in my life, my ability to become emotionally invested in slope percentages became socially useful. The application included 12 plan sheets, drainage calculations, material specifications, an erosion control note, and a diagram showing a wheelchair turning radius down to the inch. County engineer Alicia Monroe approved it in 9 business days. The permit cost $684. The HOA's declaration required exterior modifications to receive architectural approval unless the modification was legally protected or mandated by a superseding authority. David sent the approved permit and a final opportunity to reverse the denial. Patricia replied, "A county permit does not supersede private aesthetic governance." David stared at the sentence. Then he looked at me. "I have practiced law for 22 years, he said. "I have never heard anyone describe an HOA as private aesthetic governance. Is it legally meaningful? No. But it would look terrific, embroidered on a cape." The county human rights investigator assigned to the complaint was Elaine Brooks. Elaine interviewed me, Rebecca, Linda, Marcus, Kenneth Dobbins, and Patricia. Kenneth provided the board emails. That was when we discovered there had never been a committee vote on my original driveway violation. Patricia had drafted the notice herself, approved it herself, and entered the fines herself. The visual complaint came from Patricia. Why? Because when she stood at the upstairs window of her house, 3 lots uphill, my driveway reflected afternoon sunlight toward a decorative reading nook she had built beside her landing. The blocked view was not a view, it was glare. For approximately 26 minutes each afternoon in late May, Patricia had attempted to make me remove part of my driveway because sunlight bounced off it and touched a chair she rarely used. Elaine asked her why she had named Linda as the affected resident. Patricia answered, "Mrs. Carraway was geographically representative." Linda later told me, "I haven't been geographically representative since my 2nd hip replacement." Elaine issued an interim finding that the HOA's denial raised substantial accessibility concerns. She advised the association to suspend fines and avoid interference with the permitted work, while the investigation continued. Patricia interpreted, avoid interference, the way a raccoon interprets a latched garbage can, as an interesting challenge. At 6:52 on Monday morning, 3 concrete trucks rolled into Willowmere Hills. Behind them came a skid steer, a dump truck, 2 work pickups, a portable saw, and Marcus Delaney drinking coffee from a thermos the size of a fire extinguisher. The convoy turned onto Juniper Crest Road, with the quiet subtlety of a mechanized battalion invading a garden center. I had notified the HOA 5 days earlier. I had notified my immediate neighbors. I had obtained temporary street use authorization. Orange cones marked the work area. The permit was posted in a weatherproof sleeve at the end of my driveway. Rebecca sat on the porch beside me, wrapped in a blue cardigan, watching the equipment arrive. She looked at the trucks, then at the existing driveway. How wide is this thing going to be? 24 feet. Her eyebrows rose. You're building an airport, only for compact aircraft. At 7:03, Patricia's golf cart appeared at the top of the street. The amber beacon was flashing. I do not know whether she believed the light granted emergency powers, but she approached the construction zone as though responding to a hostage situation involving aggregate. She braked beside the first concrete truck. The driver, Sal Moretti, leaned out the window. Sal was a thick-necked man with a white mustache and forearms like cured hams. He looked like a vending machine that had developed strong opinions about labor law. "You can't enter," Patricia announced. Sal looked down at her. "Morning. This is private property." He pointed at my house. "That's the customer. I represent the association. Congratulations. You need to remove these vehicles immediately." Sal checked his delivery ticket. "I got 9 yards of 4,000 psi mix that disagrees." Patricia drove around the cones. Marcus stepped in front of the golf cart and held up one hand. "Work zone, ma'am. I am the HOA president. That won't protect your toes." She stopped 3 feet from him. "I am ordering this project halted under Article 7, Section 1, Paragraph B." Marcus smiled. "County permits posted by the mailbox. The HOA has denied approval. The county approved construction. The association governs design. The state governs accessibility. The board governs this community." Marcus leaned slightly closer. "Concrete governs the next 90 minutes, so I'd move the cart." I would have helped Marcus bury treasure. Patricia turned toward me. "Daniel, stop this immediately." "No. You are knowingly violating a formal board decision." "The formal board decision under investigation?" "The investigation has not invalidated our authority. It advised you not to interfere. It advised caution. It said, avoid interference." "I am not interfering. I am observing." Behind her, Sal tapped the truck horn. Patricia jumped. The clipboard struck the golf cart steering wheel and produced a flat crack like a beaver slapping a kitchen counter. Sal called down, "Observed enough?" The crew began cutting the old driveway edge. The concrete saw screamed to life, filling the air with a mechanical shriek like a dentist's drill, enlarged for use on farm equipment. Patricia shouted over the noise, "You will restore every inch." I cupped a hand to my ear. "What? You will restore it?" The saw grew louder. "What?" She moved closer. "I said you will." Marcus shut off the saw. Patricia, already committed, shouted into the sudden silence. "You will pay to have this entire accessibility project removed, and I don't care what the disabled visitor needs." Every worker stopped. Rebecca looked at her. Linda, who had been watching from her driveway in a purple robe, raised her phone. Kenneth Dobbins stood beside the mailbox. Elaine Brooks had arrived 5 minutes earlier in an unmarked county sedan. Patricia saw her. Her expression changed in stages. First confusion, then recognition, then the facial stillness of someone realizing the floor beneath them has been replaced by paperwork. Elaine stepped forward. "Good morning, Ms. Voss." Patricia lowered the clipboard. "Investigator Brooks, this is an active enforcement site. I heard. You should understand that Mr. Harper is deliberately escalating." Elaine looked at the permit. "By performing approved work, by expanding the violation. An accessibility modification, an unnecessary one." Rebecca rolled closer. Patricia looked at her. Rebecca said, "I'm the unnecessary one." "No," Patricia replied quickly. "That is not what I meant. It's what you wrote. I wrote that visitors cannot dictate architecture. Rebecca smiled without warmth. I'm not dictating. I'm trying to get out of a van. Patricia's voice became soft and formal, like a customer service recording, moments before denying a refund. The association fully supports residents with legitimate needs, Elaine asked. Did you vote on Mr. Harper's request? The board considered it. Was there a meeting? There was consultation. Was there a vote? The president has delegated authority. Who delegated it? The board. Kenneth lifted one hand. No, we didn't. Patricia turned so fast her floral scarf swung around like a windsock in a hurricane. Kenneth! He shoved both hands into his cargo short pockets, requiring several attempts because he had too many options. You told us the lawyer approved the denial. I said counsel was consulted. You told me counsel said no. Counsel's perspective was understood. Elaine asked, What counsel? Patricia stared at her clipboard. David Ruiz stepped out of his car. Probably not me. Patricia's mouth opened. David approached, wearing the burgundy bow tie, carrying a slim leather folder. David Ruiz, he said. Counsel for Mr. Harper. I know who you are. That saves time. You have encouraged him to defy the association. I encouraged him to follow the county permit. This is not a county matter. Alicia Monroe, the county engineer, stepped out of the second county vehicle. It was becoming the worst possible parade for Patricia. Alicia wore a yellow safety vest and mirrored sunglasses. She was 5'3", spoke with the clipped precision of a person who trusted calculations more than opinions, and walked toward the permit board like a referee entering a game everyone else had already ruined. It is partly a county matter, she said. Patricia looked around. You coordinated this. I shook my head. I told everyone the work started today. You created a spectacle. You brought the flashing light. Her hand tightened around the clipboard. The project remains in violation of association standards. David opened his folder. The association standards contain an accessibility exception. Subject to board review, which you conducted alone. I possessed authority. Then the liability is remarkably easy to identify. That sentence hit Patricia like a folding chair made of legal fees. She drew herself up. You cannot intimidate me. No one is intimidating you, David said. We are documenting you. The crew resumed demolition. Chunks of old concrete lifted away. The driveway widened foot by foot. By noon, the entire left side had been excavated. Forms outlined the new shape, broad and clean, stretching toward the road like a landing strip designed for very polite aircraft. Patricia remained across the street. She made phone calls. She took photographs. She dictated notes into her phone, with the urgency of a war correspondent embedded at a patio renovation. At 12:18, a tow truck arrived. The driver parked near the work zone and stepped out. Patricia marched toward him. That vehicle, she said, pointing at Sal's concrete truck, is obstructing community access. The driver looked at the truck, then at the road. There were 14 clear feet beside it. Access to what? The road. The road is open. It is partially blocked. Do you own the concrete truck? No. Do you own the road? The association maintains it. Do you have authorization from the owner? I am the president. That wasn't my question. The driver climbed back into his cab and left. Officer Bell arrived at 12:31, summoned by Patricia for the second time. He parked, stepped out, and surveyed the scene. Forms, gravel, construction crews, county vehicles, Rebecca, Elaine, David, Patricia's golf cart, positioned diagonally across half the roadway. Officer Bell looked at Patricia. What's the emergency? They are conducting unauthorized construction. Alicia handed him the permit. He read the first page. Looks authorized. Not by the HOA. Still not my department. They are blocking traffic. Officer Bell looked at her golf cart. You're blocking traffic. I am monitoring the site. From the middle of the road. This is association business. It's a public safety issue now. Patricia's voice sharpened like a fork being dragged across a ceramic plate. Officer, I expect you to enforce the law. I am. He pointed toward the curb. Move the cart. I will move when this work stops. Officer Bell stared at her for several seconds. Behind him, the concrete truck began backing toward the forms. Its reverse alarm beeped steadily. Patricia remained still. Sal leaned out the window. Ma'am, you gotta move. This truck is not entering. It's carrying concrete. It can leave with it. That's not generally how ordering concrete works. She planted both feet, clutching the clipboard against her chest like a shield issued by an army with a very limited defense budget. Officer Bell said, "Ms. Voss, move the cart." "No. Move it now. I am exercising the association's right to inspect." "From the travel lane?" "I will not be bullied on property under my authority." The reverse alarm continued. Beep, beep, beep. Patricia tried to drive forward, intending to position herself across my driveway entrance. Instead, she turned too sharply. The golf cart's front wheel climbed one of the orange cones. The cone folded. The cart tilted. Patricia let out a sound that was half scream, half something a goose would refuse to claim as its own. The clipboard flew into the passenger footwell. Her travel mug launched from the cup holder and emptied a pale brown stream across the front of her cream slacks. The cart did not overturn. It simply became stuck atop the cone, one wheel suspended 6 inches above the pavement, rocking gently like a coin-operated supermarket ride, designed for furious administrators. For 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Then Sal's voice floated from the truck. "Scenic." Linda laughed so hard she had to brace herself against her mailbox. Patricia climbed out of the cart. Her right shoe landed in the wet patch from her travel mug. She slipped, windmilled both arms, caught the cart roof, and remained upright through sheer commitment to never giving anyone the satisfaction of seeing her sit unexpectedly. Officer Bell walked over and removed the cone. He looked at the coffee-stained slacks, then at the flashing amber beacon, then at Patricia. "The permitted driveway is not obstructing traffic. Your golf cart is." He waited until she moved it. The concrete pour began at 12:46. 9 yards became 18. 18 became 27. The crew worked in sections, spreading and leveling the mix. The wet concrete reflected sunlight with the smooth gray confidence of a project that had passed every required review. Marcus checked slopes with a digital level. Alicia inspected the forms and reinforcement. Rebecca watched the transfer aisle take shape. Patricia stood across the street, making one final phone call. At 1:22, 2 private security guards arrived in a black SUV. The SUV was so polished it looked afraid of weather. The taller guard approached me. "Sir, we've been asked to stop unauthorized work on HOA property. This is my property." He looked at Patricia. She pointed toward the curb. "The association possesses an easement." Alicia unfolded the site plan. "The easement covers utility access within 4 feet of the road edge. The work does not interfere with it." Patricia said, "The driveway crosses the easement. All driveways cross it. This one excessively." The guard removed his sunglasses. "Ma'am, did you tell dispatch this was HOA common property?" "It affects common property. That's different." "It is functionally identical." "No," he said. "It's functionally different enough that we're leaving." Patricia's face tightened like someone trying to swallow a lemon without conceding the lemon existed. As the guards walked away, she stepped onto the fresh gravel base near the side forms. Marcus called out, "Ma'am, stay outside the work area. I have inspection authority." "No, you don't. I am inspecting the setback. The county engineer already inspected it. The HOA setback. There is no HOA setback for driveways." Patricia kept walking. I said, "Patricia, you have been warned not to interfere." She turned toward me. "You don't dictate where I stand." "No, the orange tape does." She ducked beneath the tape. Elaine raised her phone and began recording. Patricia reached the edge of the newly poured section. The concrete was still wet. Marcus said, "Do not step there." She looked directly at him. Then she stepped there. Her right loafer sank 2 inches. Her expression froze. She tried to pull her foot free. The shoe remained. Her foot came out wearing a beige stocking. She hopped backward onto the gravel, arms extended, looking like a flamingo attempting to negotiate a mortgage. The trapped loafer slowly tilted sideways in the wet concrete. Sal stared at it. "Well," he said, "now it's stamped by the board." Patricia pointed at me. "You caused this. I told you not to step there. You created an unsafe condition. It was behind tape. The tape was obstructive. You ducked under it. I was fulfilling my duty." Elaine spoke from behind the phone. "Ms. Voss, did you intentionally enter the marked construction area after being warned?" Patricia looked at her. I rejected the legitimacy of the warning. David nodded. That is an unusually efficient answer. Patricia's stocking darkened as damp gravel stuck to it. She demanded that Marcus retrieve her shoe. He used a long-handled rake, carefully lifted the loafer out, and placed it beside the forms. It had filled completely with concrete. Patricia stared at it. Marcus said, "Give it 3 days. That'll be the strongest shoe you own." By 4:30, the pour was complete. The driveway now measured 24 feet wide along the main stretch and 28 feet near the garage. The new access aisle connected to a gently sloped side route, ending at a 5-foot turning pad beneath a covered landing. It was clean, useful, legal, and approximately twice the size of the driveway Patricia had declared too visually prominent. The next week, the pavement markings went down. A blue and white accessibility symbol appeared near the left garage bay. A vertical sign marked the transfer aisle. Low landscaping softened the outer edge without reducing usable space. Rebecca visited on Sunday. For the first time, her van parked beside the house. The ramp lowered directly onto the access aisle. She rolled from the van to the side entrance without squeezing past a parked car, navigating uneven grass, or asking me to move anything. She stopped on the landing. "This is nice," she said. That was the whole point. The county closed the permit after final inspection. The Human Rights Office did not close its investigation. Elaine's final report was 38 pages. It found that Patricia had acted without a board vote, fabricated the appearance of a resident complaint, imposed escalating fines without consistent standards, denied an accessibility modification without meaningful review, dismissed the needs of a disabled visitor, and continued interfering after receiving official notice. The report also quoted Patricia's statement from construction day. "I don't care what the disabled visitor needs." That sentence appeared 7 times. The State Housing Compliance Division opened its own case. The HOA's insurance carrier requested documents. David sent them the binder. All 417 pages. The insurer denied coverage for Patricia's individual actions, citing intentional conduct outside the scope of authorized board procedures. The HOA's attorney, whom Patricia had never actually consulted, resigned after discovering she had repeatedly implied he approved her decisions. Kenneth Dobbins called a special membership meeting. It took place in the Willowmere Clubhouse on August 18th at 7 p.m. 83 homeowners attended. The room normally held 46. People stood along the walls, clustered near the kitchenette, and watched through the open doors. Linda sat in the front row, holding a yellow legal pad and wearing the expression of a woman prepared to take minutes at an execution. Patricia entered at 7:11. She wore a dark green pantsuit with gold buttons and carried a new clipboard. The old one had apparently been retired after combat. She moved toward the front table, with the stiff dignity of a cruise director, approaching passengers who had discovered the lifeboat inventory. Kenneth called the meeting to order. Patricia immediately objected. This meeting was improperly noticed. Kenneth held up the certified mail receipts. Every member got notice. The agenda is prejudicial. The agenda says board conduct. It is clearly targeted. You're the president. That does not justify targeted language. Gordon Pike called from the back. Would you prefer mystery conduct? Someone laughed. Patricia struck the table with the clipboard. I will not preside over disorder. Kenneth looked at her. You're not presiding. That produced a sound through the room like air escaping a giant inflatable decoration. Kenneth read the investigator's findings. Patricia interrupted after every paragraph. She claimed the letters were preliminary. They were marked final notice. She claimed the fines were automatically generated. Her initials appeared beside each entry. She claimed the committee approved the action. The committee consisted only of her. She claimed Linda had verbally complained. Linda stood. I verbally complained about you. Applause broke out. Patricia's voice rose above it. This is not a popularity contest. Linda sat down. Good, because you'd be losing worse. David presented the legal exposure. The HOA faced potential statutory penalties, reimbursement of my legal fees, repayment of all fines, mandatory governance reforms, and damages related to discriminatory interference. The total projected exposure was $186,000 to $243,000. The HOA reserve account contained $71,450. A silence settled over the room like a heavy blanket knitted from special assessments. Patricia stood. These figures are exaggerated. David adjusted his bow tie. They are conservative. The association acted to protect property values. A homeowner named Samuel Ortiz asked, "How does a $200,000 lawsuit protect my property value?" Patricia pointed at me. This entire situation was engineered by Mr. Harper. I stood. I asked which view my driveway blocked. You exploited technicalities. I followed the law. You doubled the driveway out of spite. Rebecca, sitting beside me, said, "I used it last Sunday." Patricia turned toward her. "That does not prove the scale was necessary." Marcus, standing near the door, called out, "County approved every dimension. You were paid to design it." "Yes," Marcus said. "That is often how design works." Patricia gripped the clipboard. "You all think this is funny." Officer Bell, attending as a resident from the neighboring subdivision and a witness to the incident, spoke from the rear wall. The shoe was a little funny. Even Kenneth laughed. The vote to remove Patricia required 2/3 of members present. 79 valid ballots were cast. 74 favored removal. 3 opposed. 2 contained handwritten comments instead of votes, one of which simply said, "Please stop the golf cart." Patricia stared at the results. "This board has no authority to remove me without cause." Kenneth looked at the 38-page report. "We brought cause." She resigned before the second vote could remove her from the board entirely. Then she attempted to leave with the HOA laptop. Linda blocked the aisle. "That belongs to the association. It contains personal files. Then you shouldn't have put them on the association laptop." Patricia hugged the computer to her chest. Kenneth said, "Please leave it. I will return it after removing confidential material." David stepped forward. Destroying or altering records after notice of an investigation would be a serious mistake. Patricia looked around the room. Every phone was raised. She placed the laptop on the table, with the care of someone returning a casserole dish filled with explosives. Officer Bell opened the clubhouse door. Patricia walked through it. He watched her go. Then he said, "The driveway stayed. The president didn't." The HOA settled the case 4 months later. All $2,975 in fines were erased. The association reimbursed $18,600 of my legal and consulting costs. It adopted a formal accessibility policy, mandatory board training, independent architectural review, and a rule requiring at least 3 members on any committee claiming to be a committee. Patricia was prohibited from serving on the board for 10 years. The insurance carrier covered part of the settlement after the new board agreed to governance reforms. But Patricia personally paid $22,000 toward uncovered costs. She listed her house the following spring. The real estate photographs avoided the upstairs reading nook. The listing described the property as offering selective neighborhood glimpses, which was a graceful way of saying most of the view was roofs, trees, and one extremely accessible driveway. She sold for $38,000 below the original asking price and moved to a downtown condominium where the parking garage was underground and every driveway was somebody else's problem. Kenneth refused to run for president. Linda Caraway was nominated. She accepted on the condition that meetings end by 8:30 and nobody used the phrase visual stewardship unless referring to an eye doctor. Her inaugural speech lasted 11 seconds. "Keep your property safe, keep it reasonable, and leave people alone whenever possible." That became the most popular policy Willowmere Hills had ever adopted. The neighborhood changed after Patricia left. Not dramatically. That was the beauty of it. Gordon Pike replaced his faded mailbox without submitting 3 paint samples. The Ramirez children drew chalk planets across their sidewalk. Kenneth parked his fishing boat in his driveway for 48 hours before a trip, and nobody formed a committee. Linda's hedge grew 6 inches above the old maximum, where it waved gently in the afternoon breeze like freedom with aphids. And every Sunday, Rebecca's van pulled into my 24-foot driveway. The side ramp lowered. She rolled out with room to spare. Sometimes we sat beneath the covered landing drinking coffee. Hers stayed hot because she possessed basic adult awareness. Mine cooled beside me until it reached the familiar temperature of neglected bathwater. The driveway did reflect sunlight toward Patricia's old reading nook each afternoon in late May. But after the new owners moved in, they installed curtains. The curtains cost $39. My driveway cost $31,684. Required 3 county inspections, triggered 2 investigations, removed an HOA president, and became large enough to host a modest wedding reception. Patricia said it blocked the view, so I got the accessibility authorities involved and doubled its size. Now everyone can see it, and nobody has ever had a clearer view of what happens when you mistake a clipboard for a constitution. What would you have done when that first fine arrived? Tell me in the comments, and if you enjoyed watching one narrow-minded rule create one extremely wide driveway, like the video, and subscribe to Sovereign Judgment. Around here, justice is accessible from both sides.